What if you could make millions in just a few weeks but risk your life every day in the most dangerous waters on the planet? That's the reality for the brave crab fishermen in the Bering Sea. One of them, Sean Dwyer, had just done the impossible. He is the youngest captain to lead his team to a staggering $1.8 million, breaking all records and defying all odds. How did you do it? What secret did he reveal? And what challenges did he face along the way? Join us as we uncover the Sean Dwyer story and how he made $1.8 million. Sean Dwyer's promise to his father. Sean Dwyer was just 23 when he became the captain of the FV Bering Sea, a 58-foot crab fishing vessel owned by his family, and was the youngest captain ever to appear on Deadliest Catch TV, the authentic program that follows the lives of crab fishermen around the Bering Sea. But Sean was no different. He had been fishing since he was a boy, learning from his father, Pat Dwyer, a master crab maker in Bering Sea. Pat taught Sean everything he knew about fishing, from fishing pots to reading the weather and how employees work. Pat was Sean's mentor, hero, and best friend. But Pat was also sick. He had been diagnosed with ALS, a degenerative disease that affects nerve cells and nerves. Pat knew he had little time and wanted to see his son succeed in the fishing business. He wanted Sean to marry Bering Sea and continue the family legacy. He promised Sean to take as many rings as possible and make him proud. Sean agreed, promising to fulfill his father's wishes. Sadly, Pat passed away in 2013 before he could captain Sean Brenna. Sean was saddened, but he also felt determined to honor his father's memory by joining Deadliest Catch, and decided to show the world that's what he and his team can do. He knew it wouldn't be easy. He had to face the challenges of the Bering Sea, competition from other boats and suspicion from onlookers. He had to prove he was a hero, a fisherman, and a son. He had to keep his promise to his father. Sean and his team joined Deadliest Catch in Season 12, which aired in 2016. They were new rookies and underdogs. They had to compete against experienced captains like Sig Hansen of Northwestern, Keith Colburn of the Wizards, and Jake Anderson of Saga. They had to deal with high winds, mechanical problems, and dangerous conditions. They had to work hard, spend long hours, and risk their lives to catch the elusive king and the Opelio bracelet. But Sean didn't threaten. He was confident, ambitious, and intelligent. He had a plan, a strategy, and a goal. He wanted to catch 155,000 pounds of king crab and 450,000 pounds of Opelio crab in one season. That would net him and his team $1.8 million to pay Bering Sea and secure her future. He wanted to honor his father and make history. But how did Sean do it? How did he follow his hunch and lead his crew to a $1.8 million season? What were the key moments, the turning points, and the decisive factors that made his journey so incredible? In the next segments, we will reveal the secrets behind Sean's success and show you how he became the young captain who made history. But Sean's journey could have been smoother. He had to face some challenges and obstacles along the way. One was the loss of his deck chief, Ryan, who had to leave the boat due to a family emergency. Ryan was Sean's right-hand man, a trusted friend, and the most experienced professional. He had worked with Sean since he was a teenager and knew Bering Sea inside and out. He also helped Sean cope with his father's death and supported him in his decision to join Deadliest Catch. The loss of Ryan was devastating for Sean, who had to find a replacement immediately and use the railroad to work on the boat. Another challenge Sean faced was the pressure of a TV show. Being on Deadliest Catch means constantly dealing with his crew, cameras, microphones, and producers. They had to share their own stories, feelings, and opinions with millions of viewers. They had to deal with the fame, criticism, and expectations of being on the show. They had to balance fishing goals with recreational profit. They had to be authentic but also entertaining. But Sean was undaunted by the addition of lighting. He was genuine, humble, and charming. He had a sense of humor, a positive attitude, and a friendly disposition. He wasn't shy about expressing his feelings, thoughts, and dreams. He wasn't afraid to admit his mistakes, fears, and doubts. He wasn't afraid to express his love, gratitude, and respect. She wasn't afraid to be herself, and she wasn't afraid to be different. He was a young captain with a vision, ready to share it with the world. The King Crab Gamble. The first challenge Sean and his team faced was the king crab, which only lasted 2 weeks in October. The king crab is the most prized and sought-after crab in the Bering Sea, but it is elusive. They often cycle depending on water temperature, flow, and feeding. They can be found in large or scattered groups in shallow or deep water, near or far from shore. Seeing them is like finding something in the wilderness, and catching them is like winning the lottery. But Sean had a plan. He had studied maps, diagrams, and reports, and has analyzed data, trends, and patterns. He had consulted experts, veterans, and community members. He had done his homework and had an idea. He believed the best place to find king crabs was in a remote area called the Blue Zone, about 200 miles west of Dutch Harbor, the main crab shipping port. The Blue Zone is the ocean of the deep, cold, and dark region where few boats dared to venture. It was a risky and expensive gamble, but Sean was willing to take it. He thought the Bluefield was a hidden jackpot, treasure, and ultimate prize. He convinced his team to follow him, and they headed for Bluefield. They loaded their boat with 150 pots weighing 800 pounds and netted herring, cod, and squid. They threw their dishes into the water, hoping to outweigh the weight of a king crab mother. They waited 24 hours, then pulled their dishes back up, eager to see the results. They were shocked. Big, red, and full of water, king crabs were in their bowls. The jackpot had been hit. A hidden treasure had been found. They had won the final prize. More than 10,000 pounds of king crab had been caught in one day, more than any other boat in the fleet. They were thrilled, happy, and surprised. History had been made, but they weren't done yet. They wanted to take more, fill their boat with king crabs, and make as much money as possible. They wanted to show that their success was not an accident, but the result of their skill, planning, and imagination. They wanted to honor their father and make history. They went fishing in the Nile and caught a giant crab known as a king crab. They had a mind-blowing run, a huge streak, and a miraculous season. For the first time, they caught more than 155,000 pounds of massive king crab within 2 weeks, exceeding their initial quota and breaking a new record. They raised more than $900,000 to pay off half their bills and secure their future. The catch was regarded as the kings of the king crab era and the deadliest eclipse stars. But how were they able to get to the Blue Zone, and how did they catch so many king crabs? What exactly was the secret of their success, and what challenges did they face? King crabs were challenging to find and catch in the Blue Zone. Along the way, Sean and his team faced many challenges and dangers. They had to deal with unpredictable winds, rough seas, and rough waters. They had to walk in darkness, snow, and darkness. They had to avoid rocks, reefs, and wrecks. They had to cope with fatigue, stress, and pressure. They had to face some surprises and problems. One of them was a mysterious discovery in one of their cupboards. It was a metal tube about 2 feet long and 6 inches wide, with a knob and a button like a bomb, a torpedo, or a missile. It was terrifying. Sean and his team didn't know what to do with him. They didn't know if it was sticky or if it could explode. They didn't know if they should keep it, throw it back, or report it. The Coast Guard was called, and he decided to ask their advice. The Coast Guard told them the object was likely a sonobuoy, a device used to search and track submarines. Sonobuoy was likely shot down by a military aircraft or ship, they said, and was safe. They said Sean and his team could keep it or stitch it up as they pleased. They told them not to worry and that they could continue fishing. As a result, Sean and his crew were not only relieved, but also impressed. They wondered why Sonobuoy was in the Blue Zone and what he was doing there. They were also curious about whether submarines were in the area and what they were doing there. They again wanted to know if there was something else in the blue field, something hidden and precious. They thought for once if they had stumbled upon a great mystery, gamble, and prize. They then proceeded to put Sonobuoy down in a safe place. They also decided to keep fishing and catch some king crabs. They followed through on their ideas and decided to make history. However, catching king crabs in the Blue Zone was not only challenging and dangerous, but also highly competitive. Sean and his crew had to deal with criticism and jealousy from other boats, accusations and threats from other captains who didn't approve of their gambles, didn't believe in their wild ideas, didn't like their attacks, and didn't want to compete. They had to protect their territory and their fish from competitors and predators. One of the boats that Sean and his crew had trouble with was the Saga, which Jake Anderson captained. Jake was an ambitious young captain who had fished for king crabs for years. He had a reputation for being rude, reckless, and arrogant. He had a grudge against Sean, whom he considered a spoiled, inexperienced, and happy child. He aimed to capture more of King's bracelets than Sean and prove he was a good captain. Jake was fishing in another area called the Red Zone, about 100 miles east of Dutch Harbor. The Red Zone was a shallow, warm, dry part of the sea where many boats were interested in fishing. It was safe and popular, but crowded and competitive. Then, it was also hard to find a good place to dump the pots, which put them at risk of losing them to other boats. Jake struggled to catch a king crab in the Red Zone and was frustrated and angry. He followed Sean to the Blue Zone and saw what he was doing there. He wanted to spy on her and steal her secrets. He wanted to destroy her and take her ring. He wanted to challenge her and beat her. He wanted to turn her in and let her go. He followed Sean onto the brown field and found him fishing in a secluded spot. He was surprised and jealous when he saw his cupboard full of royal rings. He decided to go to her and pour his dishes close to her. He wanted to take some of her rings and tease her. He wanted to start a war and win. But Sean didn't threaten Jake. She knew he was there, ready to move. He marked the dishes with his name and secured them with ribbons. He had a crew, a boat, and a hump. He had a father, a promise, and a history. He wasn't afraid of Jake, and he wasn't going to back down. He was going to stand his ground. He was going to defend his grip. He was going to finish his season. He was going to make his father proud. Meeting Sean and Jake in the Blue Zone was intense and amazing. They exchanged words and glanced at each other's gestures. They tried to threaten, provoke, and outwit each other. They competed for the best locations, the most bracelets, and the most profits. They struggled over pot lines and boundaries. They argued about rights and respect for the law. They fought for pride, honor, and fame. But it wasn't just a battle of words and will, but also a battle of skill and passion. Sean and Jake had different fishing methods and different results. Sean trusted his hunch, following his intuition. He dropped the dishes where he felt the pan and pulled them out when ready. He trusted his gut. He trusted his staff. He was calm, confident, and consistent. He caught a lot of bracelets and made a lot of money. Jake trusted his ego, following his instincts. He dropped his jars where he found the bracelets, and seeing that they were full, he drew them. He locked his eyes and leaned on his tools. He was impatient, restless, and disorganized. He picked up a few bracelets and made a lot of money. The difference between Sean and Jake was evident in their numbers. Sean and his team averaged 67 crabs per pot, while Jake and his team had 37. Sean and his team averaged $6,000 per pot, while Jake and his team averaged $3,300. Sean and his team had a 95% success rate, while Jake and his team had a 65% success rate. Sean and his team were the winners, and Jake and his team were the losers. But Jake didn't want to admit defeat. He was stubborn, arrogant, and hateful. He wanted the last word, the last smile, and the last bracelet. He wanted to ruin Sean's season, and he wanted to ruin his life. He wanted to take her ring and steal her glory. He didn't want to hurt her. He wanted to leave her alone. He decided to play dirty and cut the line. He decided to cut Sean's lines and grab his dishes. He intended to break the law, and he intended to commit the ultimate sin, the deadliest eclipse. The Opilio Crab Challenge. The second challenge that Sean and his team faced was the Opilio crab season, which lasted about 2 months, from January to March. Opilio crab is the most abundant and popular in the Bering Sea, but also the most difficult and dangerous to catch. They live in deep, cold water where the climate is harsh and there is a lot of ice. They're smaller and slower than king crabs, so they need more pots and trips to catch them. They're also sensitive and delicate, meaning they can easily die or lose their legs if they're not handled properly. But Sean had a goal. He wanted to catch 450,000 pounds of Opilio crab in one season, earning him and his team another $900,000. He wanted to fulfill his quota and break his record. He wanted to honor his father and make history. He too had a problem. King had to deal with the consequences of his actions during crack time. He had to face Jake's wrath for cutting the line and stealing the pot. He had to face justice, which cost him a week in jail. He had to face the reality that he lost some dishes, some bracelets, and some time. He had to face the challenge of catching more Opilio crabs in a shorter time, with fewer resources and more danger. He decided to overcome his problems and pursue his goals. He decided to fix his boat and change his dishes. He decided to apologize to the law and pay his fine. He decided to forgive Jake and move on. He followed his imagination and decided to look elsewhere. He decided to work harder, smarter, and faster. He decided to take more Opilio rings and make more money. He decided to keep his promise and make his father proud. He was fishing in the Bering Sea and catching Opilio crab. He had an incredible season full of surprises, challenges, and triumphs. He proved to be a capable angler and earned the respect of other captains and spectators. He made history and made Pat proud. But what did he do? How did he overcome his problems? And how did he achieve his goals? What were the key moments, turning points, and events that made his journey remarkable? In the following sections, we'll reveal the secrets behind Sean's success and show how he became a legendary young captain. Opilio crab fishing in the Bering Sea was difficult, dangerous, exciting, and rewarding. Along the way, Sean and his team faced many surprises and opportunities. They had to cope with changing weather, changing snow, and migrating crabs. They had to adjust to new circumstances, new methods, and new technologies. Happiness, joy, and satisfaction were to be met. Some findings and accomplishments also had to be addressed. One such was finding a rare and expensive bracelet in their cupboards. This bracelet was a golden king crab, commonly found in the Aleutian Islands off the Bering Sea. The huge, bright red crab had long, pointed legs. It was a beautiful, sophisticated, and expensive bracelet. It was estimated at $100 a pound, 10 times more than the Opilio crab. It was a huge, unexpected, and amazing catch. Sean and his team were happy, surprised, and thankful that they had just found a rare Golden King's bracelet. They had just opened the door to treasures, rewards, and many gifts. The finding was a good sign, full of blessings and rewards. It was a golden opportunity for them, and they were going to take it. They then decided to keep the gold royal rings and put them in a special place, as they decided to fish and catch more Opilio crabs. They followed through on their ideas and decided to look elsewhere. They also decided to work smarter and faster, catch more bracelets, and make more money from their catch. Keeping their promise and making their father proud was their greatest desire. They continued fishing in the Bering Sea and caught some Opilio crabs. It was an awesome season, full of surprises, challenges, and triumphs. They proved to be worthy anglers and earned the respect of other captains and spectators. They made history and made their father proud. But what else did they do? More importantly, how did they overcome their problems and achieve their goals? What were the key moments, turning points, and events that made their journey memorable? Opilio crab fishing in the Bering Sea was exciting and rewarding to them, but truly stressful and exhausting. Along the way, Sean and his team faced many challenges and risks. They had to deal with bad weather, high winds, and heavy snow, as well as icebergs, floats, and traffic jams on the sea. They also had to avoid cracks, holes, and cuts. They had to endure fatigue, pain, and injury. There were accidents and emergencies to deal with too. One of them was the destruction of their boat due to a collision with an iceberg. This large, thick iceberg hit the side of Bering Sea and created dams and leaks. It was a very serious, dangerous, and expensive problem to battle. Sean and his team didn't know how to fix it. They did not know whether it would work well or go down, and they wondered if they should stop or continue. A technician was called, and they decided to ask for help. The technician told them the damage was not serious, but needed to be repaired immediately. He said the repairs would cost them about $10,000 and take about a day. He said that Sean and his crew could continue fishing, but they needed to be careful and monitor the water movement. He also told them that he would meet them at a nearby port and arrange for the boat to be fixed. Not to worry, he said. They could continue fishing. Sean and his team felt relieved, but also concerned. They wondered how the damage would affect their boat, fishing, and time. They wanted to catch enough crabs to cover maintenance costs and meet their quota, and they wondered if they could finish their season and make their father proud. They wanted to give up, thinking they might have made a mistake or sacrificed something. They decided to fish still and catch more than enough opilio crabs to cover the maintenance and repairs. They came up with more ideas and followed through to look elsewhere. They decided to put in more work and be timely in their deliverables to catch more bracelets and make more money. At this point, the question is, how did they overcome their problems and achieve their goals? What were the key moments, the turning points, and the events that made their journey awesome? The young captain who made history. Sean and his team had a challenging but fun time with numerous surprises, challenges, and triumphs. In one season, they caught over 155,000 pounds of king crab and over 450,000 pounds of opilio crab. They raised over $1.8 million to pay off their debts and secure their futures. They proved to be worthy anglers and earned the respect of other captains and spectators. They made history for the first time and made his father proud. But how did they follow their ideas and lead their team to a record-breaking season? What was the secret to their success, and what lessons did they learn? Here are some highlights to take away from their remarkable story. Trust your instincts. Sean had a knack for finding the best fishing spots, even when the odds were off. He trusted his gut and followed his instincts, even when it seemed wild and dangerous. He taught us that sometimes the best decisions are not based on logic, but on instinct. Be courageous. Sean was unafraid to take risks, try new things, and challenge himself. He wasn't afraid to venture into the unknown, face competition, and overcome obstacles. He taught us that sometimes the best opportunities are not found in a place of comfort, but in a place of danger. Consistency and patience. Sean and his team were patient, even in the face of challenges. They remained consistent in their goal of making his dad proud, and they achieved what they wanted. Even when they encountered debilitating issues, like the mechanical issues with the boat, they didn't give up. Thank you for watching. Let's hear your thoughts in the comments section. Also, like this video and subscribe to our channel for more exciting adventures. Stay tuned for more.